Thank you very much for the kind introduction. Again, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I was with you earlier, but if you noticed earlier, I was a reactor for the mining and energy sectors, but now I'm a moderator. And I'm honored to be moderating this panel because we have no less than two highly respected and distinguished gentlemen in the business industry, not only locally but also globally. And at the same time, just in case there are people from TB5 here tonight or this afternoon, I hope this could be some sort of a test run, screen run for a possible business show. Because I've been angling for a business show, and every time I host, I would ask if TB5 is around. So I hope you're around this time. And I hope this time I passed. Anyway, again, congratulations to StatBase and to ADR. Thank you very much. And now let's go to the task at hand. And again, Jaime, welcome as always. It's indeed an honor again to be with you in the same panel. And I do recall that the last time that we had you, and it was a one-on-one, was during the pandemic. And about 3 years ago, if I'm not mistaken, face-to-face is even much better.
Always a pleasure, Mike.
Thank you. And of course, welcome, Jose, the Chief Executive Officer of ACCIONA. Thank you so much for flying from Spain. I would assume that you're based there now, and to be with us here today.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure. By the way, just to let you know, the MVP Group and ACCIONA, we've done quite some projects together in the past, and one of them is the iconic Cebu-Cordoba Bridge connecting the island of Mactan and Cebu, and ACCIONA was very much a part of that. And if you do visit that bridge, it's beautiful. And of course, we're hoping that in the expansion plans, we can still do that, connecting it directly to the airport. We are still hoping on that possibility. Okay, Jaime, I'll start with you. Coming into 2025, what specific sectors do you expect to generate high-quality jobs for Filipinos?
No, thanks very much. Maybe just a quick word of congratulations to StratBase for their 20th. It's been a great relationship we've had with Dindo and the group, and congratulations for the continuous leadership on the intellectual capital side, Dindo, and the many other commitments that you give to the country. Let me also say that I'm delighted that Jose is here. Actually, our group was just in Spain, visiting Spain and visiting some of the large corporations there. Jose was traveling, I think, at the time, but we had a chance to meet the CEO there and visit his offices. And it's very impressive, Jose, to see how Spain has evolved as well in terms of both business groups, the infrastructure, and the progressiveness that takes place in the country. And so happy that Jose is here. And actually, at a time when we need to attract investment, it's just fantastic to see ACCIONA so involved in the Philippines and so committed. And if I recall, Jose Manuel Intercanales was very committed to making the Philippines, I think, a home base for your operations in Asia. So really a great example of the kind of company that we can attract if we get our act right and can set a foundation, I guess, for foreign companies to feel comfortable here. But I guess, Mike, there are many different areas. Each company, follows their own area. But I think one area that still has stayed alive and still remained very strong is the whole business processing outsourcing industry. It's quite incredible how that institution and how that industry has survived during a period of great change in the world. There have been whole sectors where tariffs have been put on overseas manufacturing for countries like the US, and there's been globalization on many different fronts. But that service sector, the BPO sector, has evolved, has become more sophisticated over the years, has fed the real estate market as well in the Philippines, and has built skills among the people who participate in that. And it's remained actually quite resilient to the many changes that have taken place globally. And I hope as a country, we continue to give it support. It's a service industry. It's an indirect export in many ways. It's a dollar earning area. And I think there are over 1 million people involved in that sector. And frankly, I think it's an industry that should be continued to be supported. In our particular case, there are a number of areas that we put emphasis in. We've got a renewed focus on areas like tourism now, healthcare, logistics, that all contribute in one way or another. But the world is evolving, and the kind of needs that there will be for specific types of workers are going to also change. We have our own area, and I think many different industries that can build a competitive advantage in a Philippine setting contribute in one way or another to this changing workforce. But from our point of view, we continue our traditional areas in real estate and renewable energy, like ACCIONA. Of course, the banking industry continues to expand. The telecommunication industry continues to expand. But in the new areas as well, in healthcare and logistics and education, these are all areas that are giving different types of employment in different ways, Mike.
Thank you very much, Jaime. And I'm very glad to also share with the group that we're also partners with the light rail. And in fact, I understand that by maybe in a week's time, the president will be our guest of honor for the opening of that extension. And it's really good to also partner with the Ayala Group on this. Just a follow-up question before I go to you, Jose. Just a follow-up question, Jaime. What, in your view, would be the policy reforms that are needed if you are to accelerate more investments in these emerging industries? Are there any policy reforms that you have in mind that government should do immediately? Perhaps some low-hanging things that government could do, and perhaps also a long-term plan and goal?
Well, for starters, I think I was listening to Cosette earlier and Guillaume and talking about the importance of certain companies, the Metro Pacific Group as well, participation in public-private partnerships. I've always been a great believer that private capital should be used extensively to address some of the infrastructure pain points and some of the public sector pain points in the country. For that, you need an environment that is friendly to that type of collaboration between the public and private sector. And I'm a great believer, and I think it was mentioned by the previous panel, that this is an area that I think and I believe should be encouraged. But for that to succeed, as we all well know, many of us have had our own set of frustrations with that area. But if you can get the formula right, if you can get the legal framework right, then there is a path to getting private capital to help in many of the developmental needs of the country. But for that, the contracts have to remain sacred, and one must be consistent, I guess, in the framework that is accepted by the government. And if that gets given some stability over long periods of time, then you'll see a lot of private capital enter some of the bigger areas of the country. So that's one area that I believe, Mike, maybe should continue to be given importance. And as you can see, there's so many players in the Philippines that would be happy to participate. And at least, a number of us were together in the privatization of NAIA.
Yes.
Ramon Ang and the San Miguel Group won it, which I think at least showed that a private sector group could participate and win in a project that many of us have been clamoring that needed some progressive updates. So that's one area that I think we should continue to encourage.
Thank you very much, Jaime. Yeah, in fact, it's so good that they already passed the IRR for PPPs, and this actually really focuses on making sure that we encourage more private sector investment. And to a large measure, this was made possible because of Cosette. She was really in the forefront when she headed the PPP Center. And we know that PPP, if you allow private sector to come in, it frees up some of the funds of government that can be used for others, like socio-economic programs, so that the infrastructure costs can be borne by the private sector. Now, Jose, thank you again so much for being here today. I understand that you've decided to relocate your regional hub here in the Philippines. Could you please share with the group what made you make that strategic move to put your regional hub here?
Okay. Thanks, Mike. And firstly, we'd like to thank the invitation for being here. I'm very glad, very honored to be here. And thank you very much, Jaime, for your kind words. It's always a pleasure being with you. And before entering that, we'd like to explain that my first visit to the country, it was more than 10 years ago. And referring to the PPPs, it was the first time that I met Jaime. And we were looking at that. I was very keen on developing PPPs in different countries and different regions, and it was the point in time in which everybody was starting to talk about PPPs here. I think it was year 2013, 2014 could be that. What I was thinking is, well, what a big push for this strategy, but still what a way to walk, because it was very incipient. It was still very new, and one decade or more than a decade after that, it's frankly speaking incredible how quick and how robustly and solidly the system has evolved. And we are seeing many different examples. And I think that nowadays no one has any doubt about the feasibility and the attractiveness of the PPP scheme model that has been developed in the Philippines. So then going to your question, and that's something we have been discussing for a long time. I've been discussing with Ruben, that is there, and the things that we have are originally our regional headquarters in Singapore, like many other companies, wonderful place. But we were thinking that for us, firstly, the targeted projects. We saw a pipeline of opportunities in different sectors of infrastructure, in the transport, in the energy, in the water. That was our first project in the country. So that attracted us to think about that. And then even most important is that for us as Spaniards, originally Spanish company, we have much more in common with the Philippines in terms of culture, in terms of closeness to the people, the way of understanding things, than in any other country in the region. So putting all things together, we took the decision of relocating the headquarters to Manila. I think has been probably the best business decision that we have taken in the region. And we are now executing our 8th project here. All of them has been successful. Well, of course, infrastructure will always has our challenges and many difficulties, but we are extremely happy about that, and we hope to be able to keep on growing in the country and in the region, leveraging our presence in the country.
Thank you, sir. From your definitely wide experience, what sustainable best practices in infrastructure development do you think can be adopted here in the Philippines?
Well, we could talk a lot about that. It's a very wide question, but to me, the most important thing is targeting and approaching the opportunities in a global sense of sustainability. In the previous panel, has been said that it's not only environmentally, social, but on top of that, and I think that both items are you cannot separate them, because at the end of the day, it's not a question that we want to do good things and sustainable things for the environment, just for the environment itself, but because it will repay in a better environment for the people, that at the end of the day is what matters to all of us. So there is another angle that nowadays is becoming, I would say, even more crucial, that doing things under a sustainable way, smartly, will also be efficient and cost effective. At the end of the day, it's not only that we like things to be done properly, but business is about also competitiveness. And an example of that is, and let me allow this particular example. I don't want to get bored on you on this, but in the desalination industry, what we are seeing now globally is that a big step forward was being able to lower in a reasonable range the cost of the cube of water, and this has been driven mainly through capex and the energy cost. And the energy cost, we have been able to lower it precisely because the use of renewable energy. So the cost reduction in renewable energy has driven to the cost reduction in water, and all this has happened because of the focus on the sustainability that we have had. We, not as ACCIONA only, I mean the industry and all the sector has focused on from the beginning of the activity in coupling both things together. So I think it's a very good example of that. Many others, but we like to keep on this mind because it's very I don't know, easy to understand.
Thank you so much, Jose. And it's good you mentioned desalination, because we'll be opening soon a desalination plant in Iloilo. Going back to you, Jaime, what emerging risks do you see now in the horizon that the Philippines, both government as well as the business sector, should be prepared for?
Well, I think, we've just all, I guess, been quite glued on watching, for example, the US election and the philosophy of whatever leadership got appointed. President Trump won. And I think it's going to continue a trend that personally I regret, because I've always been a believer in globalization and the interlinks between countries and building on each other's competitive advantage. But there is a tendency now to have a bifurcation of technology, particularly between China and the Western countries, which saddens me. There was a period of time, a decade or two ago, when China and the US would do research together, particularly in the life sciences. People would study in each other's universities, and the world was brought together by a spirit of commonality with respect to encouraging trade, building on each other's strengths, and allowing a global movement of services and products to take place. It resulted, I think, in one of the most tremendous periods of growth, I guess, in our country. So you asked me about the fears. The fear, I think, this move back to, putting up barriers and creating, I guess, a move back to a more centralized, more personalized, more nationalistic point of view rather than building on each other worries me. I think the world prospers when we encourage trade between each country, and build on commonalities of spirit and work off each other's strength. It worries me when barriers get put up and we go back to nation states closing the door. So that's one area that I think will affect many of us, and it's unfortunate because productivity and trade, really came about from a system of supply chains that worked off the world in a productive way. Also, there are increasing tensions that are taking place, I guess, particularly in the Middle East. That's going to change energy prices and the like, and the world is a little bit unsettled. Anything that disrupts a free flow of goods and an open market for the way both talent, products, and services move around the world is an area that concerns me. The bifurcation as well of technology, when there's so much that we can gather from each other, and the breaking up of a spirit of cooperation, I think will also be problematic, for all of us. So those are some of the areas, Mike, that concern me.
But I guess the recent victory of Trump as the 47th president of the United States have, to a large measure, caused some alarm bells ringing because of his policy towards that imposition of higher tariffs. And perhaps some of the economists were saying, at the end of the day, if you impose high tariff, at the end of the day, that's going to make prices of goods and services more expensive also to U.S. consumers. But I guess that calls for another forum.
But maybe if I could just follow up on a point there and build on it, and something that Jose was also talking about. Jose talked about the issues of sustainability and inclusivity, and the word sustainable, to a certain extent, and it was touched on as well in the previous panel, tends to be associated with climate-related issues. But it's also about bringing people who are not part of the economic fabric of a country and bringing them to bear, and giving them products and services at the price points that they deserve, and get them into the formal system. That's a world that we should be encouraging. And if you look at the elections in the US, I think it's a difficult thing to comprehend what the driving forces were. There are many more experts that are better than me. But one thing that I noticed, which we are sensitive to in the Philippines, is this area of making sure that there is an inclusivity in the way the vast members of the population get included in the economic system. The moment people feel they're disenfranchised in one way or another, and globalization, of course, has shifted manufacturing to other countries and left many Americans, I guess, with a difficult situation with respect to employment. We should be sensitive to these things, Mike, so that they don't happen to countries like ours. And this issue that Jose seemed to be hinting at looking at inclusivity and bringing people into the formal system, giving them jobs, giving them products and services at a price point they can afford, is something the capitalist system must really pay attention to. The moment you get a breakup in the social fabric of our country, then the capitalism that I'm a great believer in and that works very well will suffer. And so that sensitivity to cost structures, to inclusivity, to bringing people into the formal economic system is something that all of us as business people, I think, should increasingly be sensitive to And as countries, the policies that we follow as countries should also cater to that. So going back to your issue about which are areas that could become sensitive or worrying, I think we should be careful about policies and a capital system that does not address these pain points that are happening in society. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jaime. I guess the same question for you, Jose. Well, with the Trump presidency, and we know his policies, I think he will continue with the same policies that he had in the previous 4 years when he was president. How do you think it will affect, business of ACCIONA as a whole, and maybe your views on how will it affect countries in Asia?
Well, that's a difficult question for me. I do not have real expertise on the topic, but just based on common sense and what we have seen on the previous stages of the situation, I think that my personal opinion is that it could be less worrying that it could be thought. At the end of the day, the trends and momentum are difficult to avoid, and I think that there is a clear trend in trying to do more things, doing things better. In terms of infrastructures, we are seeing the huge demand that has happened, that we had over the last decades, is now being narrowed. We are seeing very relevant projects being undertaken, and different stakeholders in many parts of the world, being the States, of course, being the whole Asia, which is probably more than 70% of the global population. It's moving towards this trend of bridging the gap between the needs of the population and the economical system supporting it. So independently of specific policies that, of course, having in mind the relevance of the country, we're talking about the United States, and we're talking the relationship with China, we're talking about all these big things that frankly speaking, it's a little bit out of my reach to be able to properly understand it. I think that the gravity will act, and that we will keep on continuing and doing our job and trying to put in place things that will cover the needs and that will be supported by other governments that will be probably much more concerned about giving the citizens what they are in need of. So I think that could be some affection, but not really as much as we could read in papers, in the media. There's a little bit of more noise than the reality behind. Should keep on working on that.
Mike, if maybe I could just continue building. One other area that I think I'd like to put on the table is, we're a consumption-driven country, and we've been particularly good at services. We've been a little weaker generally on the manufacturing side as a country compared to our neighbors, but the services have been strong. Our overseas community, have continued to do well, both through periods of recession globally and periods of growth. I think our external community of service workers have become more sophisticated, and I think it's an interesting aspect of our country that service community that we export, those individuals who are engineers, who are doctors, who are nurses, are seamen, it's never really slowed down. And that shows that there is a skill set that we provide as a nation that is wanted, that is respected, and that continues to be needed. The same thing goes to the topic I mentioned earlier, this increasing sophistication in the business processing outsourcing industry is increasingly, sophisticated. People imagine abroad, when they don't really know what's happening here, is that these are just call centers. No, you've got engineers doing CAD/CAM operations in Cebu. You've got equity analysts from our local universities doing work for investment banks in New York. This stuff is happening in our country. But if that is going to continue, if we're going to continue building on this tremendous advantage we have as a nation, which is our people, the whole educational system has to be radically reformatted. Number one, to take us up to a whole new level of learning. and at the same time link up more formally with the changing needs of industry, which are now quite dramatic. This linkage between education and industry has to come much closer together. I don't think the academic community can work in isolation of what's happening. In the end, we want people to get jobs. We want people to be employed, whether they just come out of high school or whether they come out of college. Their skills are going to have to be radically evolved in order to be able to adjust to a radically changing nature of the kind of jobs that Jose and I and the kind of people that we need in our organization. So this whole system of education, I think, and to have former Senator Angara now, the Department of Education, he is, I think, taking this very seriously. He's giving this a lot of attention. But that is an area where, as a country, I would put huge amounts of resources into, because if we can create an environment when our growing population are properly educated, are properly prepared, and there is a working relationship with industry that helps them adjust to the changing needs of our world, then you create a positive combustion in the system. If you get that wrong, you get the opposite. So whether they work abroad, whether they work locally, their skill sets are going to have to evolve, but we have a tremendous capability. This is a period of time when populations are shrinking around the world. There is great fear. We have a population that is still growing, that is still relatively young, but we can't take it for granted. We really have to take care of it. And by the way, the inverse component of that education is also their health. And so there's been a lot of stunting in our country that's also limited people's ability to learn in our vast population. And so the issue of health and education go hand in hand. If we can overweight those issues at this point in time, Mike, give them the attention that they deserve, and get more private sector groups to also allocate capital to it. We ourselves are starting to invest fairly heavily in both education and health in the Philippines as a social component of addressing a pain point the country has. Then we're setting the foundation for a future that the Philippines can be successful in.
Please, Jose.
Yeah, jumping on what you're saying, Jaime, this is very linked with one of the main constraints that we are seeing in our activities worldwide. We are active, roughly speaking, in 40 countries, and probably the biggest challenge that we are facing is talent. Being able to attract talent and be able to dispatch talent to the places in which we are delivering our projects. And the Philippines has a tremendous potential on this particular field. We have been extremely and positively surprised about the level of positiveness and engagement and willingness to improve that the population in the Philippines has. Joining this with the average age of the population gives a base load of talent that could not only be helpful and useful for developing the country itself, but for companies like ours. We could work with the people and the talent that these people have here, but then also exporting this talent to many other countries in which it will be a virtuous circle, because these people will later on come back here with experience and the learning curve that they got, applying all that to the local communities in which they will work in the future. So definitely that's another tremendous upside of the social structure that you are having here in the Philippines.
Very good points that you gentlemen raised. And I guess at the end of the day, perhaps, I don't know how far it has gone, but to a large measure, there has been talk between the academe and the industries. The industry should talk to the academe and tell the academe, these are the things that we need. We need more engineers. We're too many lawyers like me already, so never mind lawyers. Too many engineers. We need a lot of engineers. We need a lot of scientists. So perhaps, I don't know at what stage they've been doing that, but if there's going to be a meeting of the minds between the demand and then the supply coming from the academe, I guess that's one step. Gentlemen, question goes to both of you. AI raises a lot of extraordinary issues that have great underpinnings on humanity, great implications on humanity. There are a lot of plethora of literature on AI, for it, against it, the danger. I would like to ask, perhaps I start with you, Jaime. What is your view on AI? And as far as the Ayala Group is concerned, have you embraced AI in all of your activities?
It's a fascinating question, Mike, and I think the world is going to change radically because of it. I've already seen enough examples of where it's fundamentally changing the way work is going to take place. I don't fear technology. I don't fear change, Mike. I've always been a believer that we should embrace it. There's a lot of concern about what this might lead to. My feeling is, ever since the time of the Industrial Revolution, things have changed. People thought that there'd be chaos, and then populations and learnings evolve, and you start to adjust to the new tools that you have. I think AI is a fascinating new area that's going to radically change the way we learn, the way we work, the way we provide services, and will change the nature of the way we do things. But the fundamental building block of AI is data. And for that, you need to have a fairly structured approach to that data, to creating it, to harvesting it, and putting it together so that the new models that are coming out with respect to artificial intelligence will be able to use that data in a way that is comprehensive and useful. And if you don't get the data right, Mike, then you're not going to get a good use out of AI. So I think what's going to be important for us as a first step, and this is happening in the Ayala Group, is to fundamentally overweight the attention that we're putting to how data is created in the many industries that, say, for example, our group is involved in. We have many touch points to the customer, but if the data is not structured in an organized way that is conducive to the new models and algorithms of artificial intelligence being able to use it, then it serves no purpose. So what I would argue for all of us is that there has to be a strong focus on digitization first of all the stuff that we have, and then make it ready to be able to take full advantage of this shifting world where artificial intelligence is fundamentally changing the way we work. But without that formal structure of data to begin with, then it's going to be hard to take advantage of that. That would be, I guess, my advice at this point.
Thank you. Same question, Jose, on AI, and how does your company, do you embrace AI in your company as well?
No, definitely yes. I think that no one cannot embrace AI at this point in time, and having seen the extraordinary things that we have seen in a very short period of time. And I cannot agree more on the issue related to data. And I'm sure that you all suffer that, no? That we all have systems, very, let's say, sophisticated systems, that suddenly you realize that run on data, and the data is not so sophisticated, accurate, and you have a lot of data, but that data is not as useful as you have thought. And that's the first step. First step is cleaning up and selecting and having probably less data, but better data. And then you can apply on top of that the different layers of technology, AI, and the procedures and processes that will make us evolve much more rapidly. To me, all this is related to efficiency. And I'm having this discussion with several of my colleagues. Some of them that could be a little bit more reluctant to see the huge benefits. No one denies them, but to see the biggest step forward that this could imply, they're saying, well, yeah, but at the end of the day, you are working in the construction business, so you need to pour concrete and allocate the steel or whatever type of let's say, more, I don't want to say mechanical activity. Say, okay, that's true. At the end of the day, no artificial intelligence will pour concrete, at least for the time being. But all the work, all the processes, all the design, control, logistics, standardization, modular systems, activities that you need to put in place before doing the mechanical activities will have a tremendous improvement run based on the artificial intelligence. And that's where we should put the effort, no? On preparing the thing, avoiding mistakes, avoiding reduce, and trying to be more efficient, standardized, and also quick in the way you perform the activities that later on probably will be the traditional activities that we have been seeing for a long time.
Maybe, Mike, I can build on that question of AI, if you'll allow me, a little bit more. It's fascinating what data can begin to do. Sometimes it's technology related, and eventually the algorithms will have AI components to it. But maybe for the crowd here to see one major example of where data has made a fabulous difference is, for example, in the area of payments. So we're an investor in the Ayala Group, generally between Globe and Ayala, an investor in Mint and GCash. I think it's a platform many of you have used. It's just fascinating to see that as it evolves from a payment platform into a small lending institution to many unbanked individuals, the traditional way of lending and building collateral to make sure that you cover any pain points that you might have in non-performing loans has changed completely with the use of data. So you take a group like GCash, they're able to give out small microloans now, and they have a non-performing loan percentage of under 5%. And that all comes from the information that they get from the payments that they receive and they give out, and which turns it into an equation that gives them a credit score of some kind. This breaks away completely from the traditional way that all of us have dealt with lending. And so it's increasing now based on data algorithms. That would not be possible, going back to the discussion we were having earlier, if that data were not organized in a way where we could harness it and then put an algorithm on it and then use it for good, like testing out, I guess, the credit potential of payees. So that's created a system that's now expanded. As you know, there's about 70 million Filipinos now using that platform. But what fascinates me, and we just had a board meeting today, is how the credit scores and the non-performing loans are so low, Mike, based on digital information, based on algorithms, and based on data, rather than the traditional way of, putting collateral on the side, be it for large institutions or individuals. It's a change agent, and it really works.
So the non-traditional, the loans, the non-performing loans, they're very small as far as GCash is concerned, as compared to the traditional banks. Amazing. Yeah.
They're small loans, but they're very inclusive, right? Because
Yeah.
this is the community that traditionally has been not being able to get, not be able to borrow because of their size and their lack of accessibility to traditional financial markets. No?
Thank you. One of the issues that's always being raised against the Philippines is we have, according to them, a lot of logistical and operational bottlenecks. I'll start with you, Jose. What, in your view, should we do to make sure that we get rid of this, or at least minimize these logistical and operational bottlenecks that we face?
Well, from my point of view, from my activity, this is extremely related again to infrastructure. So at the end of the day, that's our bread and butter. Trying to solve and trying to improve the efficiency of the ways and means of production, being transportation, being energy availability, being water, again, availability in sufficient quantity and quality. So to me, the reply to that is proper planning. Proper planning, because after the proper planning, and not only in terms of ideas, but in the way the ideas would be executed. That's the crucial point that needs to be worked on, and this is probably, and at least this happens in many countries. That happens in Spain, and I'm sure that is happening here also. The cooperation between the different actors, the different stakeholders that are involved in this planning, and more important, the way to execute this planning is absolutely crucial. We cannot be waiting for years in order to see two different administrations get together and understand each other or align and agree on what should be done in, I don't know what type of issue, X, Y, and Z. So I think it's a question of having a little bit longer vision and not just look at what you have just in front of you, and again not thinking, and that's also deep waters, but not entering and not thinking in electoral periods, and because infrastructures cannot be linked to these short periods. This could work for many other things, but if we're thinking in developing relevant infrastructure that would have an effect in improving lives of people, we need to think in a much longer term. No, so the agreement between and the different administrations and even the different potential political parties that could be at the chair at one point in time or the next one is absolutely crucial.
You know, Mike, I'd like to build on what Jose is saying. I think this issue of an overarching timeline that's not related to elections is a really important one, particularly in the world of Jose, a world that we really need in the Philippines, which is infrastructure. I know that there are many other members of the panel who spoke just before us who are also in that field. And this issue of creating a framework that is longer term in nature and provides a safety net to the rules, regulations, financing of longer term projects is the only way to get big things done. I also think we should be taking advantage of groups like ACCIONA and Jose who work in a global setting in many different countries to ask them, you know, which countries are easier to work in and learn from it. That's the one big advantage of getting conglomerates and international companies like ACCIONA in the Philippines. They have a feel for where, you know, they've been able to contribute and where it's been more difficult. We should be spending a lot of time learning from them, seeing what countries have made things easy for them, and understanding where they've been able to contribute their knowledge and their expertise in ways that are easier than others. Jose was already kind enough to mention that the Philippines, at least for a Spanish company, and there are many great companies now in Spain, is an attractive place for the reasons that he mentioned. We should be taking full advantage of that. The moment there is a competitive advantage that one senses, and I think Jose was quite open about it, we should just be overweighting that. Actually, we should get a lot of Spanish companies into the country following, I guess, Jose's lead and take full advantage when that feeling is there. But international companies like ACCIONA can give us a feel for, you know, what are the elements in other countries they're working in that have made life easy for them and make them want to allocate more capital. Capital can move to many countries. There are many opportunities globally. And so the more international companies we bring in, the more multinationals we bring in, the more we will learn about what makes them tick. And we should, of course, be encouraging capital to enter the country.
Very good points, gentlemen. And I guess at the end of the day, I'm sure you will agree and the audience will agree, for all investors, both local and foreign, what you really want is predictability and transparency. You don't want rules change in midstream. You don't want uncertainty, because how can you properly plan unless you have it in place? And it's good to know that, for example, this administration, and I'm not a spokesman for this administration, but one thing that the president did was he said, when BBM took over, he said he will continue the good policies or programs of the Duterte administration, especially in infrastructure. And that, in my view, is a good move. Because in the past, sadly, there was a penchant to discard projects of a previous administration, both on the local and the national level. So I guess that's a good start, and hopefully we get to continue, coming from what Jose said about, you know, we should go beyond the electoral phase and all that. How many minutes do we still have? Because perhaps we could ask the members of the audience to ask some questions. I'm sure some of you are itching to ask some questions, and that will also relieve me with the responsibility of asking so many questions. So, how many minutes do we have, RP? 10? 5 minutes? Oh, okay. So how many minutes do we have? Okay. You know, executive time is very expensive. Have you calculated how much per minute? No, per minute. Oh, amazing. I'm telling you.
Jose and I are cheap, you know.
Very cheap.
Oh my God, if you're cheap, then that makes me dirt cheap. Anyway, no, Jaime and I, we can joke around because we're good friends. Okay, I'd like to open the body, no? Make it an open forum. So if you have any questions, please don't hesitate. Maybe just administrative rule or house rule. Just introduce yourself, so at least we know who you are and what office you represent. And there's a gentleman over there. Is that Miguel? Please.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Miguel Alegre from Ailing Consultancies. I just had a question for Sir Jaza about the integration of artificial intelligence to how the Ayala Group has been utilizing it, specifically in the function of real estate. I do believe that one of the major components to the growth and development of the Philippines is how we utilize our land. And, with foreign investment coming in, there's definitely interest not only to identify and expand commercial, but also the residential. How has artificial intelligence and the management of that data helped us make better decisions to where we need to grow and where we need to build?
It's a very good question, but I hate to say this, but we're at the beginning stages still of this phenomenon. We recognize that artificial intelligence will be a change agent, but we're in the process right now of hiring individuals with the kind of skill sets that can begin to put our data, as I was discussing earlier, in the right format and in the right way for us to be able to use it. So, for example, there are many touch points, but for example, and this is more an example from, say, the malls. If we can get the information coming out of our mall sector in a way that we can allow a customer to eventually come in, and based on a closed loop of data that's not made accessible, I guess, outside the walls of the corporation and kept private. But if we can take that information that exists in the movement of goods and services between, say, all the malls in our group, we could give the customer an opportunity at any moment in time to be able to enter using a mobile phone, for example. To that customer may walk in and say, I'm looking for hardware to build my house, and where the hell do I go? And where's the cheapest product? If we get that data right, you can use algorithms coming out from AI now, where a customer can come in and say, look, you're looking for this, go directly to this place, this company, or this shop, or whatever. We'll have the products, that you need, that will give you the advantage that you want, will give you the price that you want. It'd be great to change the customer experience in ways like that in the future. And the same thing will happen with real estate, as well, and cater to the customer and his needs. But for that, I'll be frank, we're at the beginning stages of turning our data into something that can be usable from an AI perspective. So we're now in the process of hiring the right kind of individuals group-wide. We've organized them under a head of AI and data analytics in Ayala Corporation, and bringing them together to learn from each other and seeing what business cases we can start to develop using this data and using the new technologies that are coming out. We're at the beginning stages, I'll be frank. I wish I could say that we were very advanced in the world of AI, but I think actually most people are in the same position. I think we're seeing the power of AI, and all of us have played around with little AI models now that are available either in your phone or your computer, but nobody's really harnessed it yet in a way that's fundamentally changing their business, at least in our country that I'm aware of. But we are taking it very seriously and building a cadre of young individuals with the kind of data analytics skill sets, uniting them and building business cases that we can then begin to address, be it in real estate or anywhere else.
Thank you. Thank you, Jaime. More questions from the body, please?
Maybe, can I ask Jose a question?
Oh, please, please.
Since we're in dialogue. So going back to the question, Jose, as a Filipino and seeing a company like ACCIONA that has a global reputation, and without having to compare us too aggressively versus other countries, can you give an example of a country in the region where ACCIONA has been able to be successful, that has given you, through their framework, an ability for you to expand and keep allocating capital that perhaps we could learn from?
You mean in this region, or you mean globally?
It can be globally, ideally this region, of course, because we have competitors in the countries around us, but it can be from anywhere. Anywhere where Acciona has felt welcome and been able to work in a productive way that could be a potential lesson for all of us here in the Philippines.
I think please do not quote me on this because I don't know. No, on the negative side or on the positive side. Now, let's start with the positive side. In a similar way as in the Philippines, we are very happy with the experience we had in Hong Kong. In Hong Kong, and after starting working here, and even if it's not exactly the same region, but it's quite close. So we were selected for delivering a large desalination plant, the TKO desalination project, in which, similar to here, we were able to partner with local companies. We were partnering there with Jardine and China State, the Hong Kong branch of China State. And the way we have been able to work, the way we have been able to cooperate with our partners, and the way we have been able to cooperate with the client and the client's consultant has been extraordinarily positive. In a place in which is normally known for the complexity. So for whatever reasons, and I think that there are several, that our team did a good job, but it's not only that, is that the project was needed, it was a new technology, and the technology and the project will ensure a source of water it was a main worry for the government of the city of Hong Kong at that point in time, and that has allowed us to capitalize on the relationship with our partners and targeting new projects in which we are working now. So that's a very similar situation than the one that we had here, in which we bring. As you kindly say, Jaime, we bring international experience and, in some cases, technology in different projects. But this would mean nothing if we would not have been able to have the straightforward friendship and collaborative relationship that we have had with our partners. We cannot deliver projects here without local partners. For us, that's a no-brainer. So we need to build relationship and trust and just getting together and getting aligned with them, with you, in order to be able to perform. If not, I wouldn't be telling this success story for the time being, and it's just starting, but just neglecting that. In a different way, and I would put example also, we are facing difficulties because probably we haven't understood properly the way of working and the relationship and that we would need to implement, because it is much more difficult for us than doing it here in a country like Vietnam, in which is performing extraordinarily well in many different activities. Manufacturing is probably the best known, but we are suffering. We are suffering because we are not able to properly understand the environment and the ecosystem. So that's a couple of examples that come to my mind in this particular region. But we will be perseverant. We think we have is perseverance, and I'm sure that we will be able to deliver it properly.
But in the Philippines, your experience here so far, has it been very good?
8 projects, very happy with all of them.
That's very good to hear. And one of them is ours.
Yeah, three in transport, the bridge in Cebu, and 3 in water. And we are very happy with all of them.
How many minutes do we have? That's it? Well, first of all, I'd like to thank really Jaime. Despite your busy schedule, you're here with us today. Again, sharing with us your invaluable insights, just like in the past. And of course, Jose, our partner as well, and flying all the way to be with us today to share with you your views, your insights. And we do appreciate the candor and the honesty in the way that you answered the questions that were propounded by myself and by the audience as well. So, ladies and gentlemen, palakpakan po natin ang ating mga bisita.
Thank you very much.
A warm round of applause to both of you. Thank you so much.